Right. Good evening and welcome to the December 5th, 2024 meeting of San Diego Community Power's Community Advisory Committee. My name is Matthew Vasilakis and I represent the City of San Diego. As the chair of the CAC, I welcome members of the public, San Diego Community Power staff, and committee members joining us in person and online today. A special thank you goes to the stellar Community Power staff for making this in-person meeting possible, the new location, and the Port of San Diego for accommodating us today. These are lovely facilities. I will now call the meeting to order. Our meeting clerk, Mari Hernandez, will now call a roll.
Chair Vasilakis.
Present.
Vice Chair Emerson.
Present.
Secretary Castañeda.
Present.
Committee Member Scalfani.
Present.
Committee Member Johns.
Present.
Committee Member Hammond. I don't think she's in. Committee Member Sandoval. Committee Member Hoyt.
Present.
Committee Member Anderson.
Anderson present.
Committee Member Harris.
Present.
Committee Member Cáceres. Committee Member Montero Adams. I have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Good. All right, we have a quorum. Thank you so much. I will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We would also like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the Kumeyaay Nation. We would also like to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge that the Kumeyaay Nation are the original inhabitants of the land now known as San Diego, where this meeting is taking place. Today, we carry their legacy forward, ensuring that their traditions continue to thrive in gratitude and strength, and we stand with the Kumeyaay Nation connected to our past and committed to a more just, sustainable, and resilient future for all. Thank you. All right, with a quorum present, first on the agenda is special presentations and introductions. Today, we would like to give a warm welcome to 3 new managers joining Community Power to support San Diego Regional Energy Network efforts. The red is so exciting. Amy Whitehouse, Desiree DeHardy, and Marissa Van Stelt, joining virtually. Would you like to address the group?
Good evening. My name is Desiree Doherty, and I'm joining the team as the marketing manager for the RED. I come with experience from the workforce world, really integrating program marketing into overall branding and community building. So we're really excited to bring that experience to launch the REN. I'm about 4 weeks in and it's been great so far. So it's nice to meet all of you, and thanks for having me.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Amy Whitehouse. I joined the REN in joined Community Power in mid-October. You can see I'm working full-time on the San Diego Regional Energy Network. I'll be leading administration for the 2 public sector programs, so working with our public agencies and our region's tribes. One of the workforce education and training programs working with high school students in the codes and standards program. So I really look forward to collaborating on this with this group. And I come from about 8 years in the nonprofit world, working on energy efficiency programs in a different regional energy network. And I had the opportunity to work with Community Power on their business plan for the regional energy network as a consultant. And I liked the team and the portfolio of programs so much. I wanted to join them in a more permanent capacity. So I'm happy to be here.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Marissa? Oh, we can hear you, yes.
Great. Hi, everyone. Marissa Van Sant. Nice to meet those of you that I haven't met before. Appreciate the opportunity for the introduction. Similar to Amy and Desiree, who are 2 of my colleagues on the San Diego Regional Energy Network team, I've recently joined Community Power, joined in mid-October along with Amy. My role is going to be Senior Program Manager for the REN, overseeing our residential and commercial sectors, which include our single-family, multifamily residential programs, 2 small business programs, and an efficiency refrigeration targeting small grocery stores and other food industry needs. Really excited to be bringing my program implementation experience to the team. I come most recently from TRC, which is an energy and engineering consulting services company, where I was specifically program manager for a low-income multifamily statewide energy efficiency program. I also, before that, was with the Center for Sustainable Energy, focused in codes and standards, and also technology demonstration projects. So really excited to be joining this team, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you, all of you. We're so looking forward to seeing the Ren grow. Got like 10 programs to set up. So that is just so stellar and such great talent to have. Well, thank you and welcome again. That concludes the special presentations for today. Are there any items on the agenda to be withdrawn or reordered? And just to note, consent item number 6 will be pulled from this for a separate discussion due to a proposed change in the meeting schedule. So we're going to pull item number 6 from the consent calendar. But are there any other items to be drawn or
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Cool. Any non-agenda public comment?
There are none.
Thank you, Mari. Written public comments, just as a note, will be submitted before the committee meeting and emailed to all CAC members prior to the committee meeting, and we posted on the website at the beginning of the meeting. And Mari, there's no public comments, so thank you. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent calendar contains items that can be approved as a package without discussion unless a CAC member or a member of the public requests that an item be removed for separate discussion and action. The CAC receives staff reports for all items on the consent agenda, and staff provided an opportunity for questions and comments during briefings prior to this meeting. Today's consent agenda includes approval of the October 10th, 2024 CAC meeting minutes, update on marketing, public relations, and local government affairs, update on customer operations, update on regulatory and legislative affairs, update on programs, and 6, approval of the 2025 Community Advisory Committee regular meeting calendar. That item will be pulled. Mari, do we have any public comment on any of these items?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone who would like to remove any of the items from the consent agenda for a separate vote? Noting that consent item number 6 has already been pulled from the consent calendar for a separate discussion. All right. Well, seeing no other objections or requests for removal, I'll turn it over to the committee members for a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 5. Do we have a motion? Motion from committee member.
Second.
Second from committee member Anderson. Mari, can we please call the vote?
Chair Vasilakis. Vice Chair Emerson.
Yes.
Secretary Castañeda.
Yes.
Committee member Sclafani.
Aye.
Committee member Johns.
Aye.
Committee member Hammond.
Aye.
Committee member Hoyt. Committee member Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Committee member Harris.
Yes.
Passes unanimous, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mari. We'll now move on to take a separate vote on item 6, which has been removed from the calendar, the consent calendar agenda. I will waive the staff presentation as I have no questions on this item, but would like this group to consider adjusting the meeting timeline due to the holiday. So right now, we have a meeting scheduled for January 9th at 5:30, but we'd like to push it to January 16th at 5:30. Would anyone be willing to make that adjustment or motion to move that date from the 9th to the 16th?
What's the reason for?
There's a holiday, I suppose, and they want some more time to like prep the meeting and get things set.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give staff some more time.
So moved.
Oh,
So a motion from committee member
Yes.
Castaneda,
second.
second from committee member Harris. Mari, can we please call the roll? Sorry.
Chair Vasilakis.
Aye.
Vice Chair Emerson.
Yes.
Secretary Castañeda. Aye. Committee member Sclafani.
Aye.
Committee member Johns.
Aye.
Committee member Hammond.
Aye.
Committee member Hoyt. Committee member Anderson.
Anderson, aye.
Committee member Harris.
Yes.
Passes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for making accommodations to staff. We'll now move on to the regular agenda, starting with item 7, Standard Community Power Strategic Plan Process Overview. Community Power CEO Karen Burns is joining us today to provide this presentation. And I will kick it over to Karen.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, members of the Community Advisory Committee. It is great to see you and to be here tonight. So my aim tonight is to give you a brief overview of the next phase of our strategic planning process. First, just a little bit of history. Some of you were here for this early history and some of folks here are newer. We developed and adopted our first strategic plan, including our mission, vision, values, and goals back in Q3, so the third quarter of 2022. At that time, we were about 20 employees. We had about 5 or 6 departments, 1 year of operations under our belts, and we were serving about 350,000 customer accounts. Over the next 2 years, we decided to stay the course and execute on that plan that we had begun and that was working very well for us. But fast forward to today, and we are now about 70 employees, serving almost 1 million customers, running programs, launching a regional energy network. We've also added several new departments, and we have 3 years of operations under our belt. So we feel now is a good time to look at the next 2 to 3 years and see where we want to go. Next slide, please. So this is just a bit of a high-level timeline of what we're thinking. Some things will stay the same and some things will change over this time period. And so similar, first thing is our mission, vision, and values. These are our North Star. These are the things that guide us and really it's how we make decisions. It's why we do what we do. These are not changing in this 2 to 3 year period. We feel like those have served us very well and continue to be extremely relevant over this period. So really what we're focusing on are the goals over this next 2 to 3 year planning period. And similar to that first planning period, we will be seeking active involvement across our staff, with the board, with our community advisory committee, and through our open meetings where public comments available with the public. So what is changing is that at the end of 2023, after we solicited feedback from our participants who participated in that update planning process, we decided to make some changes to make the process both more collaborative and more efficient. And so we decided not to have a full day public meeting where most folks were a bit passive, right? It was a little passive. Instead, we've decided to extend the time period over about 6 months, which started here in about October in earnest. And we will be having with our board members one-on-ones, as well as discussion opportunities during their public meetings. So we'll set aside chunks of time in each meeting, and we'll present both a draft plan and a final plan for review. Similarly for all of you, we are updating you on the process here in December. We will be creating small group input and feedback opportunities and sessions in late January and early February. We'll bring a draft presentation to you all during your February meeting. Then we'll all get similar to the board. Then we'll go back and have some more input. And then in March, we will ask you to review the final draft and recommend its approval to the board, who then will meet in March. For staff, we have been seeking input from everyone across the organization, a very sort of ground up approach. We're also looking at the executive level, what do we think are the really important organizational priorities? We're in the process of merging those as we seek input, and we'll have a series of retreats to both, as we've grown, to both continue driving that intentional culture and also provide opportunity and space away from all the hecticness to really focus on our strategic plan. Next slide, please. And so one thing that's come about over this period is that we've identified 4 high-level themes that really, in a way, define what we see are the things we really need to do and get done over this next 2 to 3 year period. For infrastructure, we've only been operating for 3 years. I know it's hard to envision that sometimes, but we've been operational for 3 years. We were started 5 years ago, but so we're still building that core infrastructure, and that's really, really key, especially as we're scaling. We need to get certain things right at the foundational level. Also, customer affordability, that continues to be a very important part of what we are intending to do. This was a top ask of our customers when we first did that community power plan and reached out to everyone, and it continues to be very important at the level of our state government as well. So as you heard earlier, we closed our first prepay bond transaction And that created some savings operationally, and we intend to do several more of those in 2025. That reduces our cost, the cost of our power, and again, helps drive affordability. The regional energy network is another thing that will help with incentives and programs and energy efficiency on the individual level. And of course, we're looking at distributed energy resources, solar and storage on our facilities and homes and businesses across the county, across our region, driving that and how that both helps affordability for customers and cost for us. So these are some of the things that we're really looking at. And then we can't forget about financial sustainability. We've done really well. We've really focused on building that foundation. We have a little bit further to go still. And so that's something that we're hoping over this next 2 to 3 year period that we'll really kind of establish and be able to tuck away and keep that going. And then lastly, our people, right? I mean, we are a great team. We've been able to attract amazing talent. I'm really honored and grateful to be able to work with all the folks here. We want to continue to provide great opportunities, professional development, and all of the things. We want to make sure we're optimizing our staff, that we're reducing critical points of failure, that we're ensuring continuity, and that everyone has a really great experience when they come to work with San Diego Community Power. So as you can imagine, that's a lot. And some of it's really, really important. And so I think what that means is we start to grapple with all the other amazing things that we could do over this next 2 to 3 year period, that there are going to be some things that we would really love to do, but that we might have to say not yet. And just so that we can be successful in the really core things that must happen during this 2 to 3 year period. So next slide, please. So this is just sort of a schematic of how it all filters down. So at the end of the day, when we're building individual work plans for every member of our team, it all filters back up to our mission, vision, values. So how that works is we start at that level. We've got those high level focus areas we just outlined. The team has been building department business outlooks, like how do they think they need to grow in order to achieve the goals that they're setting for themselves? What are the risks that we see across our organization? What are the opportunities? And then how does it all tie to financials? And how does that tie to rate setting? So it's kind of complex, but we're building all those pieces and we're putting them together. And that's what the 3 year strategic plan looks like. And that's where we put everyone, we get your input as well. And then once we have that, then we break it down into our annual work plan, our annual goals, our individual goals, filters into the budget. So it flows through everything. And that's the plan for this year. And we're on track to do that. Next slide. All right, so this is just a little bit further of a breakdown of what happened. So in September, it was really about building the plan and the process and just sort of thinking about how best to do that, how really efficiently, but also collaboratively to do that. And then who needs to hear about it? So we started with the executive team. We spoke with the chair. We spoke with, talked about our JEDI, making sure that our values, we're integrating our values into the DNA of our organization. And then we socialized some of this at the end of September. Next slide, please. So October to December, we're here now. This is the moment we're in where we're continuing to socialize it through our board meeting, our CAC meeting. We've asked our teams to build their first draft of their business plans for each department. We've kind of built out a risk matrix. We've been looking through that. And we've started some retreats. We've had our first executive retreat. And then next Friday, we have our leadership team retreat. That's all our department heads and directors that come together. And we grapple with, okay, you have these priorities, we have these priorities. How do we work together so we can achieve them in what order? So that's sort of the process that we'll have over the next couple of weeks. Next slide, please. All right, and then rate setting is coming. You'll hear about that later tonight. That is a whole team effort in many ways. That's really picks up in earnest now through the holidays and into early January. The board votes on rates, I believe and we have also new board members turning on. So we have an orientation for some of them. So we're gonna be really, really busy at that point. But right after we set rates, then we're gonna have these small group sessions, work with you. I'll work with CO to set up some times you can attend. We just have to keep it under a quorum, and we'll just go through that process of having that dialogue so that we can get your input on what you think is important. And then we'll share it out at the February meeting so you can see everyone can see and discuss what's been suggested or what inputs there have been. And then lastly, we'll do a draft, come back with some final iterations and discussion. And then we'll ask the CAC to recommend the adoption of the plan on March 13th, and then we will adopt the plan on the 27th, and then we'll all get together to celebrate the milestone of achieving that. Okay, and then this is just for our team. Once we have that, then as I mentioned, we break it down into its component parts. We really go into our budgeting cycle for the 25 fiscal 26 year. We break down all these things into who do we need to hire, what goals do we have on a quarterly basis, and that flows through every team member. So everybody knows how what they do is contributing to our larger mission and vision. Next slide, please. Okay, and really this is for you all, just any feedback that you may have on our core process, on the level of engagement, if you want to see more or less, on any of the timing of this, or just sort of any high level themes. I just wanted to open it up for a little bit of discussion right now on what you've just heard, and if you have any initial feedback for us. Thank you.
Folks have any questions, comments? Member Sclafani?
Yeah, so I would like to first thank Karen and Cindy of Community Power for putting this together, and I think the timing is excellent, and I will mention why in a moment. And I appreciate having the chance to provide a little bit of input and understand where the CAC sits in the process, and all good. And by having the opportunity to provide a little bit of input now, you may consider it among all of the other feedback that you will have, and do what you will with it. And then once we receive, a draft, we'll see where things go. So with that kind of preamble aside, I just based on what I saw, I would suggest a plan. Like, I see that you had the risk and opportunities matrix, and the way I've seen these type of plans unfold is you'll go through these processes and develop your document. Based on where we're at in November of 24, I would suggest you consider having in parallel to that document sort of like a plan B. What happens if things go wrong or get weird? And what I mean by that is we have a new federal administration coming in, right? It's going to likely change various things. In real time, as you are developing this plan, there will be appointments being made and people being confirmed to energy and other departments that have postures towards natural gas and transmission and so on. Over that 3-year period, which will be the first 3 years of the administration, I think the odds are on increasing demand for power from AI. So like, what's going to happen if that market changes and your procurement strategy needs to change a little bit with it? And then your internal infrastructure, you might consider, well, what's going to happen if there's some other AI opportunity to capitalize on in-house. So I would just be thinking through, as you develop the best plan you can in the next 3 months, how can you incorporate flexibility for wildly unknown events that could happen over the next 3 years.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we continue with committee member comments, apologies, I forgot. Marty, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Please continue. Other comments from the committee?
On which item?
On this item. Member Harris?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I really think this is a process that will enable all of us to participate in a productive way. And I was involved in the last planning effort, and I don't think everybody had an opportunity to do that. And I'm glad to see that this process has evolved and will allow us at various points to provide valuable input from our communities and for the organization as a whole. So thank you.
Member Emerson?
Lawrence Emerson from National City, and I was looking at within the documents, review of our mission statement and vision statement, and And when I hear the new staff coming on board and all their experience, it's just really exciting. Their talents are going to be used for these programs and to help the mission and the vision. One of the words that stuck out to me when I was reading this was in the vision was innovative solutions. And innovative, has various meanings, but when I see all these processes that we have to go through with the state level and at the local level, it can sometimes take a lot of time and energy. But I'm going to encourage or challenge the staff with their talents and abilities to try to come up with ways, innovative ways to help accelerate or make the process more efficient and get things done, even though it's very challenging. Because I think the time, getting things done in a timely manner and not letting things drag out is very important. And with the climate change that we're dealing with. So that's just my comment, and encourage all the staff to be innovative in their own way and help the process things move forward. Thank you.
Any other committee member comments? All right, well, I appreciate the process as well. I think it's much more inclusive, and I think it follows a lot of really great best practices that I've seen in terms of co-creation for strategic plans. So I'm really excited to go about this journey, and thank you for organizing all this. All right, well, if that's all of that, we will file and receive this with no further action needed. Thank you so much. And we'll move on to our next agenda item. Yep. All right, so item 8, approval of allocation from PG&E of GHG-free attributes from Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant for 2025-2030. I will turn over to Byron Lundberg, Chief Commercial Officer, and Stephen Gunther, Regulatory Manager, to present this item.
Stephen's up first. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Stephen.
Good evening, Chair Vasilakis, good evening, committee members. Like every time I'm up here, the item has a very long and wordy name. So I'm going to provide some background and context of why we're bringing staff recommendation to you tonight, and then I'll pass it over to Byron for recommendation. So the resource we're going to be talking about is the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant, which is owned and operated by Pacific Gas Electric, located up in San Luis Obispo County. The plant is made up of 2 units that have a combined generation capacity of well over 2,000 megawatts, which is a very significant resource for the state's reliability. It began operating in 1985 and was scheduled to be decommissioned this year. However, in 2022, the state legislature passed the Senate Bill 846 to extend the operations of the plant to 2030, which Governor Newsom signed into law. The extension came in the wake of extreme heat events in the summer of 2020, when the grid was, California's electricity grid was extremely stressed, and there were rolling outages. There were a few studies in the wake of that, those events and analyses that showed that there could potentially be a reliability gap if Diablo Canyon was retired without replacing additional capacity. And to avoid replacing that capacity with polluting resources like gas plants, the state opted Diablo Canyon for 5 years. Because the extension was intended to meet the whole state's reliability and not just meet the needs of PG&E customers, the bill authorizes that the costs be collected through a non-bypassable charge from all customers that are under the jurisdiction of the California Public Utility Commission, which San Diego Community Power is. Next slide, please. The California Public Utility Commission is responsible for implementing the bill, and last December they issued a decision on those implementation details. As I mentioned, the costs for the extended operations are going to be borne by all ratepayers through that non-bypassable charge. So the decision worked out some of the methodologies on how those costs be allocated. Leading up to that final decision, the SDCP worked with our trade organization, CalCCA, and we're arguing that if CCA customers are going to be paying for the cost of this resource, then it should follow that the benefits also be allocated to those customers. The commission agreed that that was a fair and reasonable argument and ruled that the benefits should be allocated to all the serving entities that are paying those costs. So there are two benefits that were identified. The first was the reliability value of Diablo Canyon's capacity, known as resource adequacy. And that benefit is automatically distributed to community power. And it's a significant benefit because, as we've discussed in previous meetings, resource adequacy is very expensive and difficult to procure right now. The second benefit was the greenhouse gas-free attributes for reporting purposes on power content. Since nuclear is a carbon-free resource, it could be included in a load-serving entity's power portfolio and reduce the carbon intensity. This benefit, though, is voluntary for load-serving entities, whether or not they want to accept that, and that is the reason we're bringing it up tonight.
What part of it's voluntary?
Whether to accept the GHG-free attributes for reporting on the power content. So the resource adequacy is automatically that was included in our obligation for our reliability needs, but the second part on whether the GHG-free attributes is something we want to report, that's the voluntary piece. Next slide, please. So just very quickly on the process, PG&E will receive the allocation percentages from the Public Utility Commission, and then we'll reach out to each load serving entity to determine whether or not they want to accept the GHG-free attributes for reporting. At that time, community power must elect to accept or deny the allocation for reporting on our power content label. And if we do not accept it, it doesn't go back to PG&E. That just does not get reported on any load serving entities power content. And that decision will have to occur before January 1st, once we get that percentage from PG&E. Next slide, please. So just to summarize the impact of the decision that community power is making right now on the allocation of the GHG-free attributes, it won't increase costs for community power customers. As I mentioned, our customers are already paying for those costs either way through that non-bypassable charge. Community power's acceptance has no impact on the operations of the plant. Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant will operate through 2030 as mandated by state law. What it will do is impact our power content label, as we have mocked up on this screen as an example. Community power, if accepting it, will show nuclear as a resource on our power content label, but it will also reduce the greenhouse gas emissions intensity, which is also something that the power content label reports on every year. And with that background, I'll pass it over to Byron to kind of talk a little bit more about the details.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. And I feel like the running back here getting the ball on the 5-yard line after we carry it all the way forward with all the complicated background. So again, Byron Falk, the Chief Commercial Officer, good to see you all. Committee, appreciate your time. Would you speak up a little? Oh yes, sorry, happened. Evening, and appreciate your time. And Stephen, thank you for the background. So this is really, as Stephen laid out here, to be frank, this is not really the procurement process we typically enjoy, right? A lot of decisions have been made before we got to this point. The state decided to extend our resource. They decided to pay for it, made decisions on behalf of our customers without our involvement or really stakeholder, involvement. We certainly benefit from a lot of the attributes, the resource adequacy, attributes associated with this decision. As Stephen said, we didn't have a choice in that. We certainly benefit significantly from that. Ballpark, everything at this point is ballpark numbers because we don't have final numbers from PG&E, but is on the order of $40 to $50 million in benefit to us and our customers per year. Again, even though our customers are paying through the non-bypassable charge, the reduction in our procurement costs for RA is significant. Again, so there's no opportunity for us to elect anything here but the nuclear carbon-free attributes to include in our power content label in our power portfolio starting next year and then over the life of Diablo Canyon's extended operations. So that's in front of us today. I know we have historically avoided contracts with nuclear power, as recommended by our founding JPA, we don't take that lightly. I think that said, this is not incremental nuclear. This is not us pursuing a contract. This is taking an option that's given to us per state action and per PUC implementation of that action. And no decision we have to make today impacts the operations of Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. And what we have is, an opportunity here to reduce our carbon intensity of our power portfolio starting in next year by accepting something our customers have already paid for. So that's, again, the broad context as we see it. If we go to the next slide, please, just to walk through the rough numbers here on the math. We estimate that the SDCP share of Diablo Canyon output is about 5%. Again, we have yet to receive from the PUC or PG&E our official load share ratio, but we are about 5% of California state load. Given 18 million megawatt hours or about of output from Diablo Canyon every year, that's about 900,000 megawatt hours to community power of nuclear power attributes that we could receive every year starting next year, which for context is about 12% of our power on and power base portfolios. Accepting that would reduce the carbon intensity of our power on and power base portfolios by about 20%. Again, appreciate you sticking with me here on the very round hand wavy math, given the uncertainty, but about a 20% reduction in carbon intensity. And again, to note here, we would not include any nuclear energy in our Power 100 or Power 100 Green Plus products.
What's your last statement there?
What's that?
What are you saying? Oh, last statement, I could not hear it.
My apologies. We would not include any nuclear power in our Power 100 or Power 100 Green Plus portfolios. So this would be included in our power on and power base portfolios. As far as the value,
It would be included as part of the renewable portion of it.
it would not be renewable, but it would be included as carbon free. So our targets obviously are, to exceed 50% renewable energy every year, increasing to 100% no later than 2035. Certainly, we aim to be sooner. Over the next few years, we expect to be around 55% and then increasing significantly to about 70% renewable in 2027. This would not reduce any renewable purchases that we make. One way of viewing this would be to reduce similar purchases from carbon-free resources from hydroelectric resources that we could make. And that's one of the valuations that we've shown here for context. And I'll walk through those now. These nuclear energy attributes do kind of transact bilaterally and opaquely. They're currently market values we've estimated to be about $10 per megawatt hour. So an option to us is worth about $9 million street value, so to speak. If we were to, because this is less valuable than carbon-free hydroelectric power, the similar volume of carbon-free energy would be about $24 million for reference. But if we were to take this carbon-free energy and reduce then purchases of carbon-free hydro, which we have, kind of historically over time been about 5% of our portfolio, that would result in about $10 million of savings per year. So that to us is significant. I think $10 million should be significant to anyone, but that would be a significant savings to our customers in our power supply costs if we were to accept this allocation that our customers have already paid for and then reduce our carbon-free hydro purchases accordingly. No impact, committee member Anderson, to your question, no impact to our renewable energy purchases or any of our long-term contracting goals. So that's the summary from my perspective and from the Power Services team perspective. Again, big thank you to Stephen and everyone involved. It's been a whole team effort to run these numbers and chase them down with the PUC and PG&E as well. And so the recommendation on the slide would be, for you all to recommend to the board that we accept this allocation to PG&E and then authorize Karen, the CEO, to execute documents appropriately. But happy to take any questions you have and appreciate any feedback as well.
Thank you. Before we do, Marty, do we have any public comment on the item?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Anderson?
Chair, I hope you indulge me because I'm going to make some rather extensive comments about this. because I have grave reservations about this. And I do understand the cost benefit aspect of this. But let me tell you where I come from. I was on the Sierra Club National Nuclear Waste Task Force. We met weekly for 4 years. And I co-authored a report on nuclear waste that was 140 pages long. Upon request, I can provide that to any of you. In addition, I'm on Congressman Mike Levin's Nuclear Waste Task Force. And I'm privy to a lot of inside information from Congress and from the state of California about this. So let me make a number of points. First of all, I think this is a totally premature motion. There is considerable doubt as to whether the Diablo Canyon will ever generate a BTU of energy again. It is leaky, it is dangerous, it has weak transmission lines. My sources tell me that it would be very unlikely in the next several years for it to generate any power at all.
Can I clarify that Diablo Canyon is currently online?
Say what?
Can I clarify that Diablo Canyon power plant is currently online?
It is currently online, but it won't generate a significant amount of energy. And are you also aware of the number of shutdowns it has that weekly?
I was on PG&E's power trading desk. I'm familiar with Diablo Canyon power.
So the point of it being a reliable source of energy is completely bogus because it's been off again, on again, off again, on again. And so I have qualms about that. This is not a greenhouse gas-free energy source. It is a intensive GHG energy source. It's intensive in the construction and the repairs of the nuclear power plant itself. It's intensive in the transmission lines. It's intensive in the mining of uranium, which is a dirty and energy-consuming process. It is intensive in the transportation of that uranium to the refinery and eventually to the site. So to call this GHG free is about as disingenuous a statement as I've ever heard. Third, I think it just violates every aspect of our charter to accept this. We talk about clean energy. This is anything but clean energy. In fact, the nuclear waste that's stored around the United States of America is second only to climate change itself in terms of an existential threat to our health. I meet continuously with the group on the waste at San Onofre. There's 103 silos full of nuclear waste. A handful of that nuclear waste would cause the evacuation of San Diego County and Orange County. A handful. And there's hundreds of tons of that nuclear waste at San Onofre. And there's no plan, although Congressman Levin's working hard on it, no plan to relocate it, not to a consolidated interim site, nor to a permit site. So when we use terms like in our very charter, I'm looking at the website, we're providing clean energy. That would be just a lie to say that energy is in any manner, shape, or form clean. We say on our website that we provide renewable energy. This is no way in renewable. This is a dirty process of mining uranium, fission in a nuclear power plant, and a lack of anything to do with the nuclear waste, which is now stored at 80 different sites around the country. It is not GHG free. That is simply disingenuous. So I think it just violates the basic charter, mission, and values. Now, understand the cost argument. If and when this starts to provide a source of electricity for the people of California, I understand the legislature has already allocated that out to the various constituencies. But I think it would be much better for us to resist that initially And not, even though I understand the fiscal issues associated with that. Because I think it's irresponsible to provide a market for what is one of the most energy intensive, wasteful, dirty sources of power I can imagine. On the website, it says our energy comes from solar, wind, and geothermal. It doesn't mention
Nuclear.
hydroelectric. It probably should, as part of our green portfolio. This is as ungreen as is possible. So I think this is both premature to adopt this. We need to see much better reliability data from the production of energy from San Onofre. And I think this is a complete violation of the charter of San Diego Community Power, and why me and perhaps others of us serve on this board, because we believe deeply in the mission of it. So I say vote no.
Thank you, Committee Member Anderson. Other comments, Committee Member Johns?
I guess my problem right now is the this presentation is a very top level thing of some, complicated number crunching about just what the benefit is. And we have the pre-meetings, non-quorum pre-meetings.
Briefings.
Briefings, thank you. I was grasping for a word.
So.
And this wasn't presented in the briefing this time. This is complicated stuff.
Yeah. See, I don't remember this.
What?
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I miss something and it was there, And I was, 2,000 miles away when I was, on the Zoom meeting okay, never mind. So, it's like, I just feel like voting yes for this would be rubber stamping something that was an attempt to, quickly avoid letting us think about it before actually approving. So I'm going to stop there. That's my view on the present request for us to approve what we're going to do here.
Thank you, Committee Member Johns. Committee Member Cunningham?
Yeah, I echo the sentiments of my colleagues. And I think given the promise of this item, maybe we should present our own motion to maybe not move forward with this item or not give, I think we're all kind of on the same vibe here. Chairman, could we make a motion to not support this item?
You wouldn't need to make a motion, but you could vote to not recommend approval.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to not recommend the approval of this item.
I was second.
Well, let's make sure all discussion has been.
Member Harris?
Oh, so I wanted to ask Byron and Vera, our foundational documents, you mentioned it doesn't, what does it exactly say about procurement of?
I'm a friend and ask.
Avoid nuclear.
It says to avoid nuclear.
Avoid, okay.
We try to
We're
avoid.
not actually actively procuring this resource. We are simply accepting something that our customers are already paying for.
And it doesn't say to avoid does not mean you're prohibited from purchasing. It just
Okay.
means that you just try not to.
Okay. And then could you explain a little more about the resource adequacy benefits? Because I read it, but I don't understand it.
Welcome. Welcome to the party for reading RA and.
Because RA is one of the most costly parts of our procurement, right? And so how does this specifically? Yes.
Yeah, no, happy to. And again, happy to answer any questions. Again, I'm not part of the briefing process, but happy to answer any questions I can throughout this session. So let's see, resource adequacy. So high level resource adequacy is a regulatory compliance requirement for the state, right? Basically, we have enough capacity to serve our load. There are different requirements. Needs to be a certain amount needs to be local to our area. The rest can be kind of in the state. It also needs to be different categories, whether flexible, or kind of just generic system RA. So we make too many annual and monthly filings to both the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, and the California ISO, who runs the independent system operator, who runs the grid, to demonstrate that not only do we have the energy and the renewable energy to meet all of our targets, but we have the contracts with sufficient resources that are guaranteeing and committing that they will be online and available to the grid during peak hours. And so and again, this is 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the RA wasn't thought, right? You could buy it for $1. If you didn't have enough, you'd call someone and pick it up for cheap, right? Now, what used to be $1 is now some months $70, $80, right? The price has just skyrocketed due to a number of factors that kind of have been at play here, but largely because we have kind of increasing load in California for the first time in a while. We're retiring a number of resources, and we are turning over the grid, from a heavily fossil fuel based system to one that is much more renewably and now battery storage focused, but based on more intermittent resources. And so we kind of have a generating capacity and transmission capacity shortfall. And so that's led to just a shortage in the state. That's what led to rolling blackouts right in 2020. As Stephen mentioned, kind of one of the initiating factors here was that, hey man, we're cutting it really close some hours. And you all probably remember was in 2022, and we all got a telephone alert, right? It sounded like an Amber Alert, but it was like, hey, we're about to turn lights off. Everyone turn off your AC. I mean, we've been that close to rolling blackouts again in the state. So resource adequacy, sorry for the ramble, but resource adequacy really is the effort from the state to make sure that in a month ahead process and then the year ahead process that we have enough capacity available. So part of this is that through a number of efforts, and again, reasonable minds can agree whether they're all as efficient and productive and communicating with each other as possible. A number of state agencies have taken every effort possible to find as many resources and make them available to the state as possible. Part of that, and as Stephen mentioned, is the legislature working at the governor's request to find a way to extend Diablo Canyon, because it's about 2,000 megawatt hours or 2,000 megawatts, right? 2 gigs of capacity. For context, California, peak load for the whole state is about 50. So this is 4% of California peak load at the very highest time, right? So this is a significant portion of our available capacity. Long story short, and Stephen, correct me on any of the mechanisms here on the policy side, but this, as this bill was passed, it was dictated that all state customers would pay for whatever the costs are to keep this online. There would then be obviously the RA resource adequacy benefits. This is again significant to us. Just our share of it is $40 to $50 million a year of benefit to our customers. That's allocated. It's just kind of taken off the top. We're allocated that as a reduction in our needs.
It's automatic.
So that's automatic. It's not even there's nothing voluntary here. There's no purchase. The state every year gives us our RA requirements based on our load forecast and then how much we think we're going to need next year. The state reviews that and tells us, okay, based on your forecast, here is a month by month and now hour by hour requirement for how much capacity you need available every hour of the next year. And we've got to go find those resources and show them a plan. The way this mechanism works is that they're just reducing 2,000 megawatts off the top of that obligation to us, thereby saving us, at very round numbers, $40 to $50 million.
Right.
So
it's already going to be automatically part of our RA to meet the state requirements, and therefore it is already, in a sense, part of our portfolio.
Yes.
And more than a sense.
We are already getting new.
So the question really comes down to not are we going to accept nuclear power as part of our portfolio? Whether we're going to report it as renewable, carbon-free content for our power base and power on.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. It's helpful.
Yeah, and as I see this again, I mentioned, and again, I have my own personal feelings about nuclear power. I'll withhold them for purposes of the presentation. But again, this will not impact any of the operations of Diablo County nuclear power plant. Yeah, again, this seems to be the accounting exercise, right? And the accounting here is based on, and we can agree or disagree, you know, with how this is accounted with the power content label mechanism, with whether this is considered carbon-free or not, right? But based on the power content label, this is a carbon-free resource and would impact our power content label as we've mocked up.
And did you say that January 1st is a deadline for load serving entities to?
Yes, I will
go for the voluntary.
I will not render Stephen to confirm.
Yes, that is the intended deadline, but don't believe we've seen the actual allocation from PG&E yet, and it's supposed to have a 30-day window.
So could it get
extended?
extended?
Reporting for 2025, starting that year, LSEs are supposed to make that decision prior to January 1st.
Yeah. I'm just hearing that there are some true economic benefits to our organization. I think this issue, we have personal feelings about where our power should come from, and we know nuclear power has a history of problems, and it continues to, as you've outlined, Peter. But I really think that our action here tonight should reflect what's best for the organization, especially as we move forward. We're really on the cusp of financial sustainability. And I just see this as a very small sacrifice in values to make in order to do a greater good for our organization and our customers. So I would really encourage my colleagues on the advisory committee to weigh the benefits that have been outlined with, you know, the making a recommendation not to support it. I think would say that our personal values are more important than the organization's future. I'll stop right there.
Remember, wait.
Yeah, I'm very, very concerned with the word nuclear, period. I don't have the knowledge that Peter has and others. Community power to me is a living miracle. Our movement towards green energy, and I say any association with nuclear makes me sick to my stomach, and I won't be part of approving.
Before I go, Committee Emerson?
Hasn't spoken.
Did you recognize me?
I will, but I would like to get to other committee members spoken.
Well, my background is civil engineering. I have also been aware of these different studies where they drilled tunnels down into the ground where they could try to store nuclear waste. So I have some knowledge of that background. I don't have an extensive of what you explained, your committee member Anderson. So I appreciate your knowledge. I also lived in Japan for many years. And while I was there, I also looked at the energy production. About 30% of it was nuclear.
Mm-hmm.
I think 30% was hydro and then a mix of other things. You know, it's not exactly precise, but roughly. And after the Fukushima disaster, all of Japan, you know, the people were concerned about nuclear waste and power pollution, and they had legitimate concerns. Well, what happened? They accelerated solar, they accelerated wind. And every time I talk to my wife about what's going on in Japan with the wind and the solar, it's a catastrophe. They put all these solar things and they slide off the embankments because of a lot more rain in Japan. The wind turbines haven't produced as much as they thought. They rusted and went bad. So what are they using? Natural gas and fossil fuels to make up for that 30% that was nuclear and not green and didn't emit greenhouse gases, but they had these other concerns. So it's very, there's no one simple answer, because you pull something away, and if you don't have a good replacement for it, you're going to suffer one way or the other. And I think, so I just wanted to share that we really, what I mentioned earlier to the staff, to be innovative and find ways to accelerate these programs. I was meaning it. So I have a question to come back to you. I was a little confused on the last display. There was like 9 million, and then you said 40 million. So the 40 million was for the RA, and the 9 million here was for, what was the difference?
For the
greenhouse gas benefit?
Greenhouse gas benefits. The
benefit was supposed, I see.
Yeah, the accounting efforts.
Okay.
Member Anderson?
First of all, I want to say to Byron that you're right. It is generating some power, however intermittent and shaky it is. It is currently generating power, which I was not aware of. So I stand corrected on that. If we were, it's going to take 20 to 30 billion dollars to keep Diablo Canyon open. Now, that's not a cost to San Diego Community Power. That's a cost to the state of California. If we were to put that same amount of money into renewables, into solar and wind and geothermal, we would vastly exceed the amount of power generated by Diablo Canyon. Now, I understand the fiscal exigencies of this, that it would be a benefit to receive some of that power, but I think it's a huge blow to our PR. It's going to be hard to go around saying we produce clean energy and we produce renewable energy and we produce greenhouse gas energy when we're sort of lying about that. And I understand that nuclear is probably already part of our portfolio. It probably comes in not only through Diablo Canyon, but perhaps through other nuclear power plants in other states through interstate transmission. But that is the dirty part of our portfolio, not the clean renewable part. So I think this is premature. I understand there's a deadline, but we can always reconsider this at a later time if we have more analysis, more evidence on this. But for all of the reasons I outlined, I would urge you to vote on this item.
Can I just clarify that the cost isn't to the state, the state is allocating that cost to us.
Right.
So
But
we are,
no, exactly. It's spread out to all the citizens.
the cost is already a cost that we now have to send to our customers.
And that cost, by the way, is grossly underestimated. If you read independent estimates rather than industry estimates of it, it's a order of magnitude higher in terms of the cost. They're saying it's 2 to 3 billion, and our best estimates is it's more like 20 to 30 billion.
Yeah, I haven't analyzed the cost because the decision at hand is not.
Nope, I agree with you.
So
I agree with you.
Just to clarify, what additional, if we do come back to this later, or again, for future follow-up, what additional analysis would be helpful to show?
Briefing for one.
I'm
I'd
curious to learn more.
I'd
about
appreciate a briefing.
I discussed this in the briefings for the ones I attended, and those were the only two on my schedule. I did come in and we had the staff report and I mentioned it and I hit highlights and asked if anyone had any questions. Folks didn't have questions. I don't know if you were at one of those.
I was, but we were squeezing it into a half an hour. And we said, this is not, there was a flippant comment about this is not in support of nuclear power. And we'll discuss this more at the meeting. So I took that to mean we were moving along, and this is the approach statutorily. This is the appropriate place for us to consider this and discuss it.
I agree. Yeah, I had a couple comments. One, we are already receiving nuclear. And so when one could argue to not put it on our power content label is disingenuous, because we are receiving this allocation, our customers are paying for it. I would say that. I would also say that almost all of the other CCAs have accepted this allocation. Almost all of them, for the same reason that affordability is one of our key mandates. As I talked about earlier on the community power plan, that was the number one thing that our customers care about is affordability. And so a carbon-free, we have a component of wanting to put some carbon-free, and hydro is extremely expensive right now. So this can replace that temporarily while we're moving towards our 2028 world, in which we have a lot of our long-term power purchase agreements that are renewable online. This next 2 to 3 years is where we're trying to balance affordability, which is a huge effort across the state, with renewables, with financial sustainability. We're not out of the woods yet. We're 3 years old in operations. So this is something just that what we thought about was that, one, our customers are already paying for it. It's like $1 sitting on the ground there, and we're not picking it up. No one else can pick it up. You know, our competitor is going to pick it up and they're going to put it on their label and say, hey, we're more renewable and carbon free. And we've seen some of that rhetoric. And so, you know, it also helps, again, temporarily, the climate action plans have reduced carbon intensity as they're moving towards all the goals that they have. You know, we can argue whether this should ever have happened with Diablo Canyon, but it wasn't up to us, right? In fact, I believe we even, you know, suggested this not be something that the state did, but they've done it and we're paying for it. And so should we not at least accept the free benefits of that? And I think that's the decision, the business decision that folks made. We're not looking to enter into new contracts. We're not looking to pay for nuclear and to enter into nuclear contracts. This is something that has been, you will, told we must foist it upon us. And so the question is, do we take the benefits that our customers are paying for? And if we don't accept the attributes, are we being disingenuous because we're receiving this nuclear and our customers are paying for it? Should they not know that that's what it is on our power content label? So those are some thoughts.
But not as part of the renewable. If you have
Totally separate from renewable.
you have power on, it is in the
table up there.
It is in the half of the portfolio.
It's not in the renewable component. Can we go back to the power content label?
I'm asking a question.
This one.
Can't, there's no way on earth we can see that.
Sorry, so it says eligible renewables, and then under that, it has listed solar, wind, biomass, geothermal. Then it goes coal, then it goes large hydro, and then it goes nuclear. So it's its own separate line item, separate from eligible renewables.
So it's in the portion that's non-renewable.
Correct. Correct. It is not being classified as renewable at all.
But it's already there now.
This is 100% and it's 0 here. This is then the base and the power on is where it's proposed to be included.
And it's basically replacing our hydroelectric content that we've reported previously.
That's where we get savings. That's where the
Yeah.
savings to our customers could come from this for this period of time.
The reportable carbon benefits would be greater than our current carbon-free contributions, which are about 5%. This would be about 12%.
12%. So more than double.
So $20 to $25 million.
Member Johns.
I don't understand why, if we're getting, you know, in the accounting of electrons into the grid and electrons out, if we're getting whatever percentage Diablo Canyon is putting into the grid, why we have to accept this allocation to get the resource. I'm really concerned about resource adequacy. And the argument that would really make me accept something like this is that it's the only way we get the resource adequacy benefit here. But I don't understand why, if we're if we're getting the electrons, why we're not getting the resource adequacy benefit.
We are,
Does that make sense?
we are getting the benefit now. We had to fight for it, but we're getting it.
So in other words, we don't improve our resource adequacy position by voting to accept this allocation.
Correct. There's two separate economic benefits. There's the resource adequacy piece, which is taken off the top at the level of the CPUC and CEC. And then when we're reporting in and having to buy the resource adequacy. So instead of having to buy 10 units of RA or 12 units of RA, we now only have to buy 10, if that makes sense. And that's done the level of the state. The carbon-free attributes are what would replace what we would purchase in the terms of hydro. So it would be a savings to our customers should we want any carbon-free in our portfolio at all.
Like,
Hydro has gotten very, very expensive over the last couple of years. And so if we wanted any carbon-free at all in our portfolio, to have a renewable and a carbon-free component. So this isn't changing our renewable purchases, to be really clear. This is not changing how we're renewable.
I totally get that. And nuclear was always represented as, not renewable, but GHG free, don't react.
Classified by the state.
Yeah,
Say
okay.
that, that's how.
I get that. But so there's no fiscal argument that our resource adequacy is improved by accepting this or voting to recommend to the board to accept this allocation.
They are two separate things, that is correct. What changes is we would not purchase hydro, which would on an annual basis for this period of time, which would save us anywhere from 9 million if we were going to do our current allocation, which is around 5%, or up to 25 million if we were to try to replace all of this carbon-free with hydro. That's the difference. So RA is happening. That's the savings that we're getting automatically through the way it's happening. And then this is a separate economic benefit. So there are two benefits. And this one is around the carbon-free attributes. It replaces in our portfolio.
But again, the basic question, and I'm just going to repeat it, which I think you've said you agreed, we're not changing what we're spending for resource adequacy if we're not lowering what we're spending for resource adequacy by recommending to approve acceptance of the allocation.
Of the carbon-free attributes. The resource adequacy allocations, I don't know if you want to jump in here. The resource adequacy allocations already happened.
Yeah,
Okay.
You're correct. There's no change in resource adequacy supply costs, but the overall power supply costs would be reduced if we reduce our hydroelectric purchases and replace with this nuclear.
Member Stefani.
I'm winding up. We're all having fun talking here. I'm gonna get down to like a real simple question in a minute, but I guess I just first point out back to the strategic plan. Might be worth having kind of a heart-to-heart in the community about carbon-free versus renewable and what are the goals over 3 to 10 years, given, real talk about gigawatt scale data centers coming online and potentially using natural gas to power them, right? So it's like, do you want to have the nuclear option and be able to use it that way, right? So there's that comment related to the strategic plan. To the item that's in front of us here, I guess the issue where I have an opinion is on the power content label. Like, I believe that needs to accurately reflect whatever the mix is. And so what I wanted to avoid would be a situation where these benefits create the appearance of a certain power content that's not accurate. What I learned in this meeting, though, is that maybe it's already not accurate. So I guess I would like to understand more the thought process that went into the existing power content label. Like, I want to know that that's accurate.
Yeah, sorry, what like what introduced doubt in the accuracy of the power content.
The comments that we are already, or that you are already procuring nuclear power, but that nuclear is not reflected.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we are not, to be clear.
Okay,
We've never purchased a megawatt hour of nuclear energy. The allocation as proposed for 2025 would have that carbon-free nuclear energy coming to us at no cost. We are currently as proposed, and actually, yeah, without, as Karen mentioned, without any action, we won't technically have nuclear power in our resource adequacy supply plan next year. We will have a reduction in our total resource adequacy obligation next year because of this. So that will be, I mean, it's probably semantics. It won't technically be in our supply portfolio for next year on an RA perspective, but the supply portfolio will be reduced by the contributions of Diablo Canyon to the statewide portfolio. So there will be, RA will be contributing to our RA needs. We will not technically have it in our supply plan next year, but it'll be reducing our overall obligations.
okay.
We have yet to purchase any nuclear power. That's the consideration for us today. Whether to accept and not to, I say purchase for free, or receive the allocation starting in 2025.
Okay, so if I understand what you said correctly, the current power label from day 0 until now has accurately reflected the source of the energy that came to us, and there's no like.
Right.
Okay, that's good. And so what I'm hearing is that if this benefit was accepted, it appears on the power content label as renewable energy, even though, as units of energy is what I want to say, even though you're not taking physical delivery of units of energy, let's call it, from Diablo. Is that correct?
Yes, broadly. By the way, this is fun stuff. So I can hang out all night, but stop me at any point. Because the California ISO, the market is pooled for all resources within the state. We do not technically tag electrons in and out from various resources, right? As they do outside of state. So yes, everything is pooled and delivered into the California ISO market. And so, yeah, it would be delivered to the market technically on our behalf. Council can confirm my understanding that we would then, again, the $0 allocation contract would then probably change title to us at point of delivery. So we would take delivery of these attributes. We haven't seen the contract. We don't have no details yet on the process. We would take title, take delivery of that technically, but it wouldn't be tagged to us. It would be what? We would take delivery of that energy as it's delivered, yeah, I believe, but to be honest, I'm not sure what, because I don't know, there's no mechanism for transfer of otherwise of carbon-free attributes. There's no kind of rec associated with these. Does that answer the question?
It does. So I guess to conclude and wrap here, my opinion is the power content label should accurately reflect the mix of power that the ratepayers are getting. And so if there's no nuclear in it now, that's great. I am in favor of getting the financial benefit that is laying on the table. However, I am not in favor of listing that benefit on the power content label if it's not required to be. And we could talk more about it, and if I'd be interested in your comments, but I would pause my own.
Is the financial benefit tied to the content label being present?
The financial benefit associated with the nuclear allocation is in tandem with our reduction in other carbon-free purchases. So if we use this in conjunction with a reduction in carbon, in what we buy from existing hydroelectric resources otherwise, that's where we can realize the $10 million of savings. Is that the question?
Yeah, I think so. So sorry to jump back in then. I said I was going to stop talking. So what I'm hearing then is that it would like net out with hydro on the power content label. So in other words, you're not just adding fictitious megawatt hours of nuclear power that aren't in your supply portfolio. You'd add those megawatt hours, but you would deduct hydro.
Yes. Yeah, there is some. For first of discussion, there is like the world here, whether it's counterfactual or the alternative here, where we don't elect these megawatt hours, right? We don't take delivery of them. They then, again, no one else can claim these. I think in other allocation processes, there's been an opportunity for kind of declined allocations to be reallocated, in the renewable contracting process through the voluntary allocation process. That doesn't exist here. This is a take it or leave it. If we don't accept these free carbon-free megawatt hours, then they don't get claimed. They're kind of lost to the ether, but they then still exist within the megawatt hours will still be generated. They won't be claimed. And I don't know, they may then be factored into the overall system power purchase on everyone else's power content label, which again is a portion of our unspecified power in our power content label as well. So they would probably be reflected there. But again, I presume, and again, sorry if I'm speculating here, but I presume they would be then pooled throughout all LSEs that claim system power, and maybe a slight reduction there.
Sorry, parting comment. I still got the microphone, so you're gonna have to take it away from. So I guess what I'm getting to my point, I think like highly polarized world, I guess, in 2024, just to oversimplify, I think the ratepayers care about cost and taking the benefit is important to ratepayers. I don't think the power content label is relatively important to ratepayers. However, I'm not on board with like misrepresenting the mix of what the power is. Now, another way to consider dealing with that is like in financial reporting, you're going to have your GAAP accounting, which is what you're doing here, right? And then you're going to have your non-GAAP. And I think it would be appropriate to think about some correct way to reflect the power mix to the ratepayers so they know here's what we're getting or not. So I hope to stop talking.
I appreciate the comment, and I like the thought around non-GAAP power content accounting, because I think we all have comments about the GAAP methodology we have to comply with. We can certainly take that back. Again, I'm not sure that I currently see anything that's incorrect in how we propose to reflect this here, should we take the allocation. But I appreciate the comments.
Any other comments? I'll just share. I really appreciate the spirited discussion and learning a lot more about your perspectives. Remember, Anderson, your work in nuclear, anti-nuclear energy is very commendable, and I'd love to pick your brain more on it. And just appreciate hearing more about ways we can improve in terms of briefings and providing more detailed, specific information on heavy topics in the future. Recognizing too that this was on the agenda, and just be sure to read the briefings and check on the items and see if there's anything you want to highlight. I think overall, especially reflecting on this past election, folks are very concerned about costs. Affordability is front and center. And for me personally, the longevity and success of this organization is paramount. It is the only vehicle for which I see that we will be able to achieve our clean energy goals in the long run, and from there, achieve our climate goals more broadly. And if a state has mandated that this power be available to California and has mandated that this is something that needs to be moving forward for agencies like ours, and we need to take advantage of every benefit that we can in order to ensure the success and longevity of the organization, I'm going to have to move forward in that way, regardless of how I feel about nuclear power. So that's where I'm standing on this. I'm happy to call a vote on the standing motion to see if what's best to proceed.
I think procedurally, what would be the easiest for us is to move the motion as written for a vote.
Yes.
And then you can vote as you wish. One thing I wanted to point out, in case it's helpful to the group, that according to the policies and procedures for the CAC, you are supposed to try to seek a consensus, but if you're unable to do so, then divergent viewpoints will be communicated to the board. Okay, so what everyone's been communicating here will be put together in our staff report. We'll be sharing with the board. So it is easier to maintain the same language for the recommended action.
Okay. Well, appreciate that. And also, again, really appreciate hearing everyone's perspective and getting the information we need from you all so we can make an informed decision to vote. With that,
Could you repeat the motion?
It's in the agenda.
oh, I'll read it out just.
No, she made a,
She made a motion
No.
negative.
She, her, just from a parliamentary standpoint, she did, but it has been recommended that we vote on the motion that was put before us.
Right.
So hers would be regarded as a no vote
That's
on
what
the
you-
main motion.
I didn't
Yeah.
catch that. Okay.
We need to formally rescind.
There was a first and a second.
Yes.
Yes.
No, we should do that.
Well, wait a minute.
What are we
Or you could-
voting on this, the motion that's coming out of the agenda right now?
So under Robert's rules, your motion is on the floor,
Right.
right? So then someone could amend that to get to
Let's do that then.
the board, and then we just vote on this one.
So let's make that amendment to have whatever's on the agenda now.
And I'll second that.
You'll second that.
All right.
Sorry about that.
No.
Do we need to vote on that?
I was interested.
Procedures, Robert rules.
Fine.
Talk to you. All right, well, I'll read out the recommended motion and then we can vote yay or nay, depending on how we're feeling about it. The recommendation is, or the motion is to recommend the board elect to accept Community Power's allocation from PG&E of GHG-free attributes from Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant for 2025 through 2030 and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to execute the associated transaction confirmations via annual allocation processes or as otherwise required. And just to be clear, if we're voting yes, supporting this motion, and if we're voting no, that means we're voting against it. Just be clear. All right. We have a motion from, yeah, I guess the motion's already there. So just call a vote.
Chair Vasilakis,
Aye.
Vice Chair Emerson,
Aye, and you said you're going to be noting the people's opinions.
We'll summarize them.
And you'll summarize it. So I vote in support of this.
Secretary Castañeda,
You say nay.
What was that?
Nay.
Committee Member Sclafani,
Because the cost to ratepayers is important to the community of Chula Vista, because Mr. Vosberg has convinced me that a new power content label would not misstate the mix, I vote aye.
Committee Member Jans,
Aye.
Committee Member Hammond,
Abstain.
Committee Member Hoyt,
Nay.
Committee Member Anderson,
Nay.
and Committee Member Harris.
Aye.
Yes, have it.
All right, the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I do need to point out the inappropriateness of the procedure here. A chairman of a committee is never allowed under Robert's rule to speak for or against a motion that's on the floor. The only time that that's appropriate is when there is a tie vote. Then and only then may you speak to it. Likewise, the roll call is inappropriate according to Robert's rules because you never start with the vote of the chairperson. The chairperson can only vote at the conclusion of the rest of the votes. So that needs to be reordered. Otherwise, you're in violation of fundamental rules of parliamentary procedure. So please note that.
I appreciate the coaching. Is there anything that we need to change?
I think we're okay.
Thank you. All right, appreciate the discussion. We'll move on to item 9.
Wait. I don't understand what there was. Votes for, votes against, and 1 abstention was.
What was the
What
vote?
is, how many votes are, in one direction are required to pass?
So the quorum for today's meeting is 5 votes. So we have exactly 5 votes.
Okay.
5 yay, 3 nay, and 1 abstention.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 9, creation of the 2025 advisory.
It's controversial.
Thank you. Advisory Committee Work Plan Ad Hoc Committee. I'll turn it over to CL Mellis Presto, Senior Community Engagement Manager, to provide the brief presentation. CL?
For the board approved CAC policies and procedures, the CAC adopts a work plan that aligns with the scope of work approved by the board of directors. It shall be updated and by the board on an annual basis. In 2023, staff leveraged the existing Community and Equity Ad Hoc Committee to discuss and recommend revisions to the work plan at the time, which was informed by ample CAC member feedback during meetings. The 2024 CAC work plan was unanimously approved at the January 2024 regular meeting of the Board of Directors and the February 2024 regular meeting of the CAC. Per policy, the CAC may create ad hoc committees to address issues more in depth outside of regular meetings to bring back as recommendations to the full CAC. Ad hoc committees are temporary committees appointed for a specific purpose, such as updating the work plan. The CAC may establish temporary ad hoc advisory committees that are composed of less than a quorum CAC, have no continuing subject matter jurisdiction, and have no meeting schedule fixed by motion or other formal action of the CAC. Such temporary ad hoc committees are not subject to Brown Act noticing and meeting requirements. The chair will seek volunteers to serve on the ad hoc committee, working to ensure all members have a chance to participate in various groups as formed throughout the year. And in terms of timeline, staff is recommending that this specific ad hoc committee, if approved, meet at least once before the January CAC meeting, so that it may provide recommendations and work plan revisions that staff may take to the Board of Directors January meeting. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Marty, do we have any public comment on the item?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much. I'll turn over to CAC members for discussion. Or rather, I guess, folks are interested.
I have a question. We did establish, I believe, one ad hoc committee last year.
Two, I think.
Two. Okay. And I know we've received reports and am I correct to think that those committees executed their functions and then shut down?
Yes.
So,
correct. Yeah.
okay.
And there was briefings at the end and
Yes,
presentation.
they were, okay, so just trying to refresh my memory on.
Just to clarify, the Power 100 committee has not been stood down since there were outstanding, deliverables from staff to come back. But the other committee was stood down, and the Power 100 committee will be standing down within the next.
So we're in Power 100 will not meet again?
It will probably have another meeting, which will be its final meeting based on the last meeting that was.
Okay.
Which the two timelines, yeah.
But at that last meeting, it's not intended to only be a termination of their role. They could make recommendations in one meeting. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
May I make a comment? We also have the strategic planning effort ongoing and in parallel. It may be worth considering in your ad hoc committee decisions whether or not you want to create something that's coordinating with strategic planning efforts.
Here.
We also have strategic planning efforts that'll be ongoing for the next 3 to 6 months. It may be worth considering in your ad hoc planning efforts if you want to create something that's coordinating with strategic planning.
Well, we're not going to create a ad hoc committee tonight then, so, correct?
Karen asked me to suggest that before she exited, so I'm just putting it out there that if you want to create something or factor that into your planning, perhaps that's something that you do.
Yeah, fine.
I would make a motion that we,
Sorry.
thank you. Sorry to speak out. I would make a motion in support with the addition of that the ad hoc committee consider how to address the strategic plan.
The point of order, that was not on the agenda, so unless that's considered to be part of your work plan, it cannot be a separate item.
Right.
So if we want to create an ad hoc committee that's specifically focused on the work plan,
Focus on what?
then we need to agendize that, or that would be a separate motion.
So you cannot make a separate motion unless it's within the umbrella of the subject matter that's in the current staff report and agenda that was publicly noticed.
Because it is related to the work plan of the CAC. So I'm just thinking that based on what Jack just said, that this would be the time to.
We do have a recommended motion here. which
Okay.
I could read out if folks want to. Yeah.
Okay.
So that recommendation is to approve the creation of a 2025 Community Advisory Committee Work Plan Ad Hoc Committee and assign volunteers.
Oh, of course.
Okay. I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I second it, and my understanding in past work plans is during the ad hoc committee can add items what they want to work on.
Correct.
So that doesn't exclude your thought. Yeah.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes.
Do we need to vote first to approve the,
Approve the ad hoc committee and then I believe the
Seek volunteers.
process is the same.
Any members?
You would seek volunteers.
okay, and then after we.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, I hate to be the contrarian today, but this sounds as though it's very redundant with the ongoing efforts to create a work plan by the entire organization. And we're all going to provide input into that work plan, I suppose.
If I may clarify, this ad hoc committee will be taking a look at the CAC work plan. The strategic planning efforts that Karen talked about earlier in this meeting are actually organizational wide. So this one will be very specific in scope for the CAC, what it will discuss over the next 20.
How would the two differ?
They can be parallel efforts, which is why I think Karen was referring to that there can be, considerations of the strategic plan as we develop the CAC so that they both go in tandem and are complementary in one another.
That sounds like it's from the Department of Redundancy Department.
Department of Government Efficiency.
We've had a work plan, which was our own creation. So, obviously we are guided by the strategic plan in each year. But in terms of what's specific in our work plan, we own it.
Sometimes we've added things that wasn't in the big, wasn't in the office.
Yeah.
Activities that we thought was important from a community perspective.
But could we not all add that as a body rather than as an ad hoc committee?
The ad hoc committee would be providing us like some initial ideas and sketches, and then obviously we would approve that as a full committee. So it's more just volunteers for folks who want to kind of start to sketch and then.
The very first work plan was actually done by, this subcommittee of CAC members to actually create the itemized elements of the plan. So, without some entity creating a work plan to bring here for the vote, for a vote of people in a quorum, the work plan has to be created to be presented here. And it can't be created by
ad hoc,
us meeting in a quorum. We'd be here all night trying to flesh out the wording of every bullet item.
No, my point was the strategic plan already is the work plan.
It's not.
It's not, because if you would think, sorry, I'm interjecting. If you would think about it, like we're like a department of SDCP. Each department would have its own work plan, would have its own focus area. And while we would touch various elements and provide recommendations across departments, like we still need to focus and have our own, like we're going to want to talk about community outreach. We're going to want to talk about building the Power 100 network. We're going to have more focus areas that are less specific to other elements of the organization. And so that's the need. But I hear your point, and I think that if you want to vote nay on the item, that's.
Can you
totally
put the
fair.
current work plan on the screen or? No,
I don't think we have that on file already.
It's on the website though.
Yeah.
I just wanted to point out that this is a document that actually goes to our board for approval. So we have to provide some input into it. And the purpose of the ad hoc committee is to do that nitty gritty work. So we're not doing it here or at our next meeting. So I think it's essential that we create this new document to forward to the board to let them know what we plan to do over the next 12 months.
well, that ad hoc committee brings it back to all of us to review and discuss and finalize. So
Is the work plan for the work of the community advisory group, or is it's not a work plan for San Diego Community Power?
Correct.
Okay. Now I understand.
That's what we're trying to tell you.
Appreciate the clarification.
Doesn't say that.
We call a vote on the motion.
Just if CEO could send us a link to that after the meeting, it'd be, I think. I couldn't find it, yeah. I don't know what.
All right, ready? The call vote.
Okay, Committee Member Harris,
Yes.
Committee Member Anderson,
Emerson or Anderson?
Anderson,
Anderson, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Hoyt,
Aye.
Committee Member Hammond,
Aye.
Committee Member Jans,
Aye.
Committee Member Scalfani,
Aye.
Committee Member Castañeda,
Aye.
Committee Member Emerson,
Aye.
and Chair Vasilakis. Motion carries.
Thank you. All right. Volunteers? Is that now?
Yes.
Great. Who would like to volunteer for this new subcommittee?
Anderson?
I haven't been on a subcommittee or ad hoc committee recently, so I'll be one of the members.
I'll just say, I think 3 is a good magic number, just for like scheduling purposes. And any other volunteers? Member Harris?
Yes.
Harrison? Any others?
It's exciting work, come on.
I've been on one already, but if anybody else wants to do it.
Well, what I was gonna say, actually, I term out in June.
Me too.
Oh, this will be done by when?
Oh, the idea is to bring this to the board of directors for approval. So like this will have had an opportunity to, be brought to the full CAC by January or the February meeting at the latest.
Okay, no,
Do not remind me that you're leaving. Breaks my heart.
but you want to, shall we draw straws?
Go for it. I've been a part of.
Okay, I'll do it.
All right, we have 3 volunteers. Wonderful. The committee member Johns, Harris, and Emerson. We need a vote to approve. Yes. Okay. Do we have a motion?
We need a vote
Do
to
we
approve.
need a motion?
Volunteer.
No,
We already approved it.
So, I mean, I don't think the CAC policies speak to this specifically, but the board policies allow the chair to appoint
Oh.
members directly into it once it's been created and no vote is required. So in the absence of specific policies for the CAC, I'd say we follow the board policy.
Okay, so. Pointed.
You're assigning, okay.
Anointed.
Yes.
Here,
I appreciate, thank you all, and again. Oh, there's a whole second page here with this laid out. I apologize. Well, with that, can we move on to regular item agenda 10? Great. All right, item number 10, sorry. San Diego Community Power Network, request for qualifications update. Ciamas Crespo, Senior Community Engagement Manager, will also be providing this presentation. Please and thank you.
Yes, so in this presentation, I will share our progress in building partnerships with community-based organizations to maximize our collective impact as part of the San Diego Community Power Network, which we talked to you all about, I believe, this meeting. As a reminder, the Power Network's goals are to engage in standing partnerships that expand overall capacity, build relationships with community leaders to inform and equip them with the tools to talk about community power's role in the region in a way that fosters transparency, open communication, and collaboration. Co-create an ecosystem of partners that further our reach, community recognition, and trust. And finally, supporting our programming as well. The overall intent is to build regional partnerships and collaboration with our community-based organization ecosystem to create shared ownership over our mission and vision, especially within communities of concern. Next slide. Great. We're looking to achieve the goals of the Power Network through 2 distinct phases. The first phase was the launch of a request for qualifications, or RFQ, to collect qualifications from organizations interested in engaging and are working with community power. Our goal with this process was to understand the needs, concerns, capacity, and level of influence of our community-based organizations to identify competencies and expertise currently not held by community power, build mutually beneficial partnerships, and support community power programming implementation. The second phase of this process involves assessing these responses to create an information sharing infrastructure to foster collaboration, communication, and programming awareness among an ecosystem that's aligned with our mission. This will allow us to coordinate cross-organizational outreach and activities for maximum impact, recruit event attendees, organize advocacy around policymaking efforts, and jointly seek out funding opportunities to advance equity and sustainability goals in the region. Slide, please. Through the request for qualifications that was launched on October 9th, Community Power aimed to learn more generally about the willingness, expertise, and capacity of respondents to carry out work in partnership with Community Power. We also asked respondents about the needs of the areas that they serve, the organization's impact within the communities that they serve, and how they envisioned engaging with Community Power. Staff conducted targeted outreach, Staff conducted targeted outreach through emails and various social media platforms, created a dedicated page on our website, and shared information about the Power Network and its requests for qualifications, both virtually and in person, in approximately 10 community meetings and networking events, reaching over 300 people. Additionally, over a dozen partners included the Power Network in their newsletters and our mailing list to support outreach to their own networks as well. Individual technical assistance opportunities were offered by appointment, and a webinar going over specific aspects of the solicitation was posted on our website. As part of our outreach efforts, staff conducted 3 in-person workshops across San Diego County to be accessible to those in Central and South San Diego County, North County, and unincorporated county. There were over 13 organizations represented in these workshops by 20 participants. Next slide, please. We received approximately 15 questions to the solicitation regarding topics including clarity on service area, funding sources, the type of projects, and what collaboration would look like. And responses to these questions were posted on the website on November 4th. Next slide, please. The first round of the request for qualifications officially closed on November 11th. And Community Power received 33 unique submissions and is currently in the process of clarifying the responses prior to moving forward with qualifying partners to engage in contracting. Once that process is completed, we will be able to share with you all specific details about the organizations who responded. In the meantime, we will be providing you with an overview of key outcomes from this first initial batch of responses. Community Power received responses from a variety of organizations, so from nonprofits to corporations and those of business sponsors. Interest indicated on the submissions spanned every area of professional services, covering all of our Community Power member agencies. Next slide, please. While most of the organizations indicated energy/environment as their primary focus area, followed by community development and education, it's pointed in the figure over here, all focus areas were represented across submissions, which included arts and culture, food security, health, housing, human rights, and policy. Next slide, please. Community Power will continue to qualify the responses received. Respondents should expect to hear back from Community Power staff on whether they have been qualified as a Power Network partner by January 2025 or earlier, with more information on specific contracting opportunities to come in early 2025. We plan on posting a list of partners as part of our media efforts around that time, as well as hosting an initial gathering to start creating the Power Network's collaborative space around that time. We encourage organizations to still respond to the solicitation, which is still live on our website, as we reserve the right to continue to accept submittals on a rolling basis, and do plan to do a second round of reviews of the submittals by spring 2025. There were several organizations who have since expressed interest in the network, and we're really encouraging them to respond and answering questions as we can. We would also encourage you to please share with your networks, of course, and this concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions or as many questions as I can at this time.
Thank you, CEO.
Thank you.
Claudia, do we have any public comment on the item?
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
I've got a quick one. What does it mean to be a partner? What are their obligations or responsibilities?
So to be a partner is to successfully submit a request for qualifications, which basically outlines all of the information associated.
That's the process. What's the outcome?
So the outcome is that partners will receive the opportunity to basically provide proposals to engage in the type of work that they have specified that they will be interested in engaging with Community Power with.
Power generation?
No.
So this process is specifically geared toward nonprofits in the nonprofit sector.
Right.
So part of the work that we were envisioning as part of it would be, for example, outreach and expanding outreach opportunities, hosting workshops, listening sessions, and implementing our program.
Got it.
Yes, wanted to just ask, as you qualify these organizations based on their responses, will you attempt to maintain the geographic representation that that was on that map?
Certainly, because we are hoping to, leverage the power network to really be able to reach, all of our member agencies. That is a goal. Yeah.
Great. I thought so, but I just wanted to put it out there.
Member Emerson?
I didn't know you had a presentation while you were talking, so I missed the whole slide. I was listening though. So, so people can still, or organization, nonprofit can still submit.
Right.
Is there going to be another official RFQ or no? Just is open if people.
It will be open, yes.
If we knock somebody, hey, you might want to apply, and so all the information is still on the website on what okay. And then
Just to clarify, the RFQ does not have a closing date. So it's still the RFQ process. It doesn't close.
So they would still submit a paperwork that you would review and have interaction. And so you said there were questions and answers, and it was posted. Can you give examples of some of the questions and answers?
Yeah, we received questions around interest that was already garnered by the power network. So for example, during the workshops, we received a question around interest that was already shown by other organizations. For example, we also received questions around what type of specific work would organizations be carrying out as part of, the power network as well. So I'm happy to share a link to the questions that was posted.
Please do
They're
that.
pretty comprehensive to the ones that we
Yeah.
received.
But did they have okay, so those are some generic questions. Was there some specific?
Those are specific questions that we received.
Those are the kind that you received.
2 examples, yes.
And then, so next year, you may decide on bringing some of them on board or offering some contracts with them to do those services? Is that how?
Based on their qualifications, yes.
And pay them for what they offered, if it seems valuable for what we're doing, the community. Okay. Yeah, if you could send that link as well, I would appreciate it. Take a look at that.
Question. So it's a great presentation. I'm excited of what this will bear out for SDCP. There were could we get a list of the organizations that have already submitted the RFQ, just so that we have an idea, we can push others that we want to be a part of this, but aren't there?
Not able to share that.
Okay.
Second, just because we're still going through the response.
At some point.
However, yes, we will make this a bigger media push in order to kind of, continue to increase interest around it. And I'll make sure to share it with y'all.
Thank you.
Can I ask another question? So where did you see the most potential benefit from these nonprofits and them interacting with San Diego Community Power? What were some of the most oh, wow, we didn't even think of that, but that would be valuable. Can you share some of the things that they presented that they might be able to do?
Unfortunately, I'm not able to disclose specific details to the responses associated with that, but I'm happy to share that after we qualify the responses.
Right.
I will say that the idea is to foster collaboration. So bringing it back to your earlier point of innovation, that is certainly something that we're looking forward to fostering as part of this process.
So you're afraid to give that information because somebody else might steal it or something?
So the process, and I will say that I was a little bit worried about bringing this to the committee this early, but we're supposed to ensure that we review the proposals based on the information they submitted. So we are trying to avoid being influenced by this committee. We do not really want to share that information at this point to ensure the integrity of the process, to ensure that all of the submissions are being evaluated based on what they submitted to us.
Well, I'm not trying to influence the decision-making, but I think understanding it better will allow us to maybe pull in some nonprofits to participate. And if we don't understand how it works, it's harder for us to do that.
That's a fair point. I think I am more comfortable if we do that after we evaluate and we are able to then share the information and then seek that input for the next round. I think would be the most appropriate way.
And I think just keeping in mind that this is an open RFQ process, we'll get a first batch of folks and then we can go ahead and commit to doing a second round of outreach to organizations we think may be filling some gaps.
And if I may, that's pretty consistent with how we do business across the board.
But it's an open RFQ. You were talking about phase 1 and phase 2. I don't understand.
It's an open RFQ. We will be reviewing submissions on a periodic basis. So for this first phase, those are the submissions that we're moving forward with in order to qualify. We are encouraging folks to still submit, responses to the RFQ, and we're hoping to do another submission, process by spring of 2025. So there's still opportunity for folks to get qualified. It's just that this first batch of submissions were reviewed and we're moving forward with these.
And in terms of fairness, if someone were denied this time, they could learn this information and reapply. So it would still be fair, but we want to ensure the fairness for this first round. That makes sense.
So you're qualifying them, whether you think they are valuable enough or they submitted good enough ideas to work with San Diego Community Power. That's
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, this is a file and receive. We'll have no further action. We'll move on to agenda item number 11. Update on 2025 projected rate changes. Lucas Uto, Senior Director of Data Analytics and Customer Operations, and Aaron Liu, Rates and Strategy Manager, will provide the presentation.
And committee members, I'm here today to provide an overview of 2025 rate setting as well as a preview of proposals that are available. So let me start with our timeline. I just want to point to that in October and November, SDG filed their latest rate-related filings. And now we're in December, we're here staff to present you all with an update, and we'll be presenting a similar update to the Board of Directors next week as well. And then moving forward, we are going to be doing more analysis over the next few months, and based on what SDG files in December for their rates to be effective January 1st, 2025, using that as part of our analysis to set our first effective rates for funding. Next slide, please. So in terms of our rate setting process, we always want to use the rate development policy as guiding principles. So here are the high level objectives of those. And it's what we want to balance when we develop and set our rates. Of course, we talked about affordability, as well as financial sustainability, building reserves, rate competitiveness, customer value, stability, equity, which we talk more about. Rate structure simplicity, comparability, and transparency is also very important. And then avoidance of cost shifting and cost of service. So what are the components of Community Power's rates? And kind of as a reminder, if you take a look at the table, it's an illustrative example from our joint rate comparison. And for each of those columns, whether it's SDG's rates or Community Power's 3 different products of Power Base, Power On, and Power 100, there are the generation or the commodity costs, the delivery costs, and then the PCIA, the power charge indifference adjustment, which is above market cost related to procurement commitments, as well as the franchise fee, which is a surcharge applied to electricity transported over San Diego Gas electric systems that are constructed on public streets and highways. And then all customers, those bundled SDG customers or unbundled Community Power customers, are assessed both the PCIA as well as the franchise fee. Next slide, please. And in terms of our mechanics, which we get to here in terms of equality versus equity, just for a definition, equality means an individual or group of people is given the same resources or opportunity, versus equity, which recognizes that each person has different circumstances and allocates the exact resources and opportunities needed to reach an equal outcome. We will continue to recommend tractation of our rates because of the PCIA and its vintaging mechanism. And this classification will maintain a fair, equitable, and balanced rate structure that avoids creating winners and losers for all of us. Next slide, please. And here is a different take on same principle of making equity based on numbers for those folks who like to look at it numerically. So community power, we have customers that were enrolled into service in different years. And for each of those years, they're assigned a different PCIA vintage. So vintage 2020, 21, 22 are all applicable vintages for community power. And if you take a closer look, illustrated example on the right, if we want to maintain a competitive discount of 3% across all the different vintages of customers, because they have different PCIAs, that means we have to create 3 sets of rates. Otherwise, the 3% discount would be different across this 3 types. And because of that, we will continue to recommend propagation of those rates until one day the PCIAs converge. So reviewing of the overview and the mechanics, we get to kind of, I think, what people look forward most to. In terms of 2025 commodity rate projections, according to SDCP, they published this 2 weeks ago. And if you take a look at this table, the rows coming down are the different customer classes. And then the columns going across on the left is San Gas and Electric's average commodity rate from 2023 till their proposed rate for 2025. So those are all absolute value. If it's something you want to look at, you can do so in detail. But I just want to turn your attention to the right side of the table. So between 2023 and 2024, January 1st to January 1st, SDG's commodity rates dropped by 23%. So that's what we saw last year when we were setting rates. And then SDG also implemented rate changes March 1st, 2024 of this year, as well as October 1st, 2024. October 1st, 2024 this year. The changes for commodity rates are relatively small, just 0.19%, so not even 0.5%. And what SDG is projecting for 1/1/2025 compared to current effective rates in terms of commodity rates is a 6.2% increase across the system, total system average. Or, the range is actually 4.6% to 7.7%, depending on the customer.
Aaron, just remind me, commodity means the generation, not the distribution,
yes.
Right?
Yes, interchange. And according to SDG, the primary drivers of this commodity rate increase that they projected for 2025 is the adjustment between their balancing accounts as well as impacts from their general rates. And in the same filing, SDG is also projecting their PCI rates to decrease as well for all applicable vintages, which is 2020 to 2022 for community power. Next slide, please. So with all that information in terms of next steps, we will continue to monitor filings that are rate related or any other filings coming from SDG as well as coming out of the Public Utilities Commission in the next month or so. And again, SDG's projected commodity rates and PCI rates will be finalized end of December. So everything now is still tentative. And staff will recommend to the board in January to adopt community power rates for effect in February 1, 2025. And just kind of a few key early considerations or takeaways is, again, staff will continue to recommend bifurcated rates to promote equity in terms of discount, as well as final rates will not be determined until the end of the month, and those projections may change. Information. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Aaron. Mari, do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much. Any questions or comments? Committee Member Johns?
Flashing back, and forgive me, to item 8 on approving the allocation. Can you give some quantifiable idea of how much accepting that allocation will help the rate that we set for the basic power on category?
I can't give any exact numbers up my head. We would have to run it.
Maybe an order of magnitude, like, 1%, 20%, I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, there's always changes in terms of the assumptions as well as everything else going to the pro forma. So those items are kind of moving as well as speaking range projections. Perhaps we can provide a better set of numbers.
If I may, as we get further along through this process, we can come back and share what the impact of that.
In other words, you're gonna set rates. And it looks like, I think, I'm guessing, my impression is that the board is going to approve the accepting the allocation of the nuclear. So, but I just so I feel comfortable with what we did here. I would just like to know what if we had declined the allocation, what that influence was. If you could just put a little flag on it.
We will definitely do that. As soon as we run our process, we'll be happy.
Yeah, thank you.
Member Sclafani?
I mean, I would just comment to that, in gross numbers, you could say, well, it was $9 million divided by 1 million customers. You could look at it that way. You could divide it by the loads. I mean, it's going to be a very small, I think, impact on.
That's yes.
It's 9 to 10 million of the ratepayer.
And that's if and only if the whole amount is passed on to the customers. But it's not added to the solvency and profitability of San Diego Community Power.
If I may, we're in a period right now where affordability is paramount for all of our.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
We're in an age right now where affordability is absolutely paramount.
Yes.
So we're looking across the board at dropping rates wherever we can, responsibly and audibly on behalf of our customers. We'd be happy to share that information once we do our due diligence. Okay.
Member Anderson?
Now, maybe you're not the person to ask this question to. Maybe it's Byron and Jack, but SDG&E provides about a 10% benefit to their shareholders. I don't know if it's 12% or 8% or whatever, but most regulated utilities provide some dividends to their shareholders. So we have similar procurement costs. We have similar manpower costs. Why aren't our rates then significantly lower, given that we're a nonprofit than SDG&E?
I'll clarify, SDG&E's procurement, their commodity procurement costs have no incentive to shareholders. They're purely pass-through costs, just like our commodity costs are. They have up to 14%, and anyone correct me with an updated number?
14% of what?
Up to 14% regulated rate of return based on their investments.
Okay.
T&D, but that does not apply to their energy procurement and power supply related costs. That's just pure pass-through. There's no upside to them on the commodity cost, which is what we provide.
But it impacts their bottom line.
Yes, it impacts the utility's bottom line. Yes.
So why isn't our either profitability or rates significantly lower? They've been a little lower most periods.
We're competing in the same market, and it impacts the utility's bottom line, but only on the transmission and distribution. On the delivery side of the business, they don't make $1 on their procurement or their commodity generation service or whatever you choose.
If somebody were to opt into SDG&E, they wouldn't make additional money off of that?
Those, there are, no.
Member Harris?
Yeah, I just, in following up on this train of thought, one of the things that is going to make us even more cost competitive is our near-term strategy, which is starting to develop of buying local resource from projects that we have procured, like the Vikings Energy Farm, which opened November 20th and is now hopefully going to be factored into how we set our rates, because we're now able to purchase energy not on the open market, but specifically through the procurement contracts. And so what I'm understanding is our ability to be even more competitive is based on our short and long-term procurement strategy.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. And we should see some ability to be more competitive because we now have this new resource online and more are in the pipeline.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Vikings, it's a huge victory. Again, it's one of the first contracts we signed as an agency, right? As we shared, been in a tumultuous. Oh, sorry.
Up a little bit more.
My apologies. We've been in a tumultuous market scenario here with the pandemic, supply chain implications for resources and interconnection. And so we've seen resource delays across the board. Yeah, it was really exciting for us to get Vikings online. It's the first of many dedicated resources that we have online or in development for us. There's another one scheduled for next year, similar in Imperial County, and then a slew of resources in 2026 and 2027 that will make a significant portion of our power supply portfolio. And those all, again, will provide us with value and cost certainty. And so we'll be making.
Your voice trailed off again at the end.
Sorry, those will provide us with our customers with significant value and cost certainty as we have long-term lower price contracts than having to compete in short-term markets.
One more. I wanted to thank for the presentation and just point out from like a ratepayer community perspective. I would like maybe in other future presentations, if there's a way to just somehow attempt to make things like a little bit apples to apples. Like I look at the first table with the colors here, and I see the SDG&E generation rate for TOU, DR, it's like 13.8 cents. Then I go down to the black and white table, and I'm seeing the SDG&E commodity rate for that presentation, like
Even looking at our package.
19, 15, 16 rates, 19, 15, 16 cents, excuse me. So like this table, residential customer class, the rates are like 19, 15, 16 cents. Fine, those are numbers. And then if we could go earlier in this presentation, like 2-3 slides. A few more, that one, residential is 13A. And I guess the point is like here, community power looks higher than SDG&E. You know, like my community is going to look at this and say like, okay, all I get is you guys cost more. But then if we scroll to that other table that was lower, we're showing a different rate for SDG&E, which makes community power look a lot more competitive. So like, I'm just not clear on like which is which. And if there's any way to like simplify things even further, it might be useful.
Yeah, I can standardize the tables. These tables are showing different sets of data. That's why they're not, you're not be able to compare apples to apples. The first table is a joint rate comparison comparing SDG rates to community powers rates. This table is showing SDG rates throughout time. So it's SDG rates compared to their own rates. So there's no community power rates in this.
Right. I would just expect to see the 13 cents somewhere here. Okay.
Yes, and this is also on a customer class level. The other ones on rate schedule.
Right.
So you want the R1 is been more drilled down. That's why there's some disparity there. Thank you. But understood.
Anderson?
Yes, and you know, that's all often what they're just looking at the individual rates. But I think what we, the San Diego Community Power, needs to emphasize is our plan where we put money back into the community. That always has to be show and tell. together with these rates. So people know that the money's going back to the community to benefit the ratepayers in a different way than whatever San Diego Gas and Electric is doing. That really needs to be show and tell all the time together with the rates.
I just want to echo that another way. I mean, you could almost put another row on the bottom. And it's, under the community power side, it's money back to the community. And on the SDG&E side, it's money to
negative
Semcom.
just
Right? Money to Semcom. I mean, some more diplomatic way of doing something.
Although SDG&E does have programs to put money back in the community as well.
Right.
So again, if we get that comparison, it should be apples to apples.
Good point.
I appreciate all the slicing and dicing of the ways that we present this information. Are there any other questions or comments?
Just one quick comment is, and thank you for your presentation. It was really clear on how the process will take place. And I just wanted to basically say that last year at this time, it was kind of panic mode because of the drastic drop, and I think this time around is going to be so much smoother because we are so much more developed in every way. And so I think our competitor realizes now that we are going to set our own course here and set our own rates and provide real competition. That's it.
Any other questions or comments? All right, well, this is another file and receive with no further action needed. Thank you so much, Aaron.
Sure.
All right, we'll move on to our standing items, which are discussion of potential agenda items for future Board of Director meetings. Just as a reminder, the CAC may suggest agenda items for a Board of Director meeting agenda by communicating with the CAC chair and designated community power staff before and or after a regular CAC meeting. If suggested at this time, there shall be no discussion or action by the CAC unless the item has been included on the CAC agenda. Do any of our CAC members have recommendations on potential items for our Board of Directors? All right, seeing no recommendations, we'll move on to committee member announcements. Do any of our CAC members have any items they'd like to share today?
Yeah, so one of our members, Laura Casares.
Thank you.
Okay, well, did I steal your thunder?
No, take it.
Okay. She was elected to be a city council member for the city of La Mesa. So she'll be sworn in next Tuesday, which I imagine means she'll be resigning from this committee, but perhaps
Going to another.
perhaps joining the board. We'll see. It's up to the mayor of La Mesa to appoint board members for the, yes, yeah.
No,
So that's
right?
it.
Yes, congratulations to member Caceres. Any other announcements?
Make one. I didn't plan to until you reminded me here. I have taken another parallel volunteer role with the Association of Energy Engineers San Diego chapter, which is a group of professional engineers in mechanical and electrical engineering working in utilities and other sort of delivery channels for the programs. And so I would just like community power to be aware of that as maybe more bridge building and pathways from programs out to industry.
I appreciate that. Mayor Emerson?
Nothing to do with the utilities, but the two events that are going to happen in National City on Saturday. One is a group, the organization called Arts, which is a reason to survive. And it brings in young people, teenagers who maybe don't fit in the normal school system, using their talents with art or music. And they're going to have a show and tell. It's in National City at the old library, but it's got its own label, Arts, and it's near the city offices, and from 12 to I think 4 o'clock. So that anybody can come and look at all the artwork, and you can maybe buy some of it. I think they may play some music, but it's just a nice event. That's going to be one. And the second one is the Stein Farm, which is an old representation of how people used to live 100 years ago. They have a hand water pump. They have little animals living there, and they sell items to fundraise for the program, and people can come and learn about how people lived in the old houses and what it was like, the kitchens and the bathrooms, and then just buy some things from the people who come there and sell stuff. It's just a community type event, including jams and that they make from their own plants on the little farm. So that is from a little bit later, like 2 to 6, or maybe later in the evening. Just FYI.
Sure, one more National City event happening this weekend. Olive Gardens and Learning Center is hosting their volunteer appreciation events at the Olive Gardens and Learning Center facility. If anybody hasn't checked this place out, it's a hidden gem in National City. It's a beautiful Victorian home. Come over and check it out. It's from 10 a.m. to about 2 o'clock. Olive Gardens and Learning Center. Thanks.
And if you have any little kids or grandkids coming to the Stein Farm, they can get to feed the different animals that are there. It's really fun for the little kids.
That's on place.
Any other? Right. Well, that brings us to the end of our agenda. Appreciate everyone's participation. We are adjourned to our next regular meeting on January 16th, 2025 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you so much.
Thank you.